Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hawks back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right with Carlson, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Barrett. Fighting scores! Off the face-off! Up in Zeminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They score! Score! Monsters score! Now they catch each other and they both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado.
And Turks and Caicos.
Vacation mode Sean. Welcome to the Calder Farmstead podcast, episode number 42. Haven't done it in a while. You can blame the stumble on that. For Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021. If you were hoping for a podcast featuring EOS crop monitoring walkthroughs, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast, and my name is Cece Hockley.
And I'm Sean O'Brien.
And as always, we thank you for tuning in with us.
If you're new to hearing Cece and I talk about hockey, we're going to talk about some AHL news that's gone on so far this offseason. This is kind of a shift for us into off-season mode, as we no longer have live games to talk about. So we'll check in throughout the offseason and talk about news, maybe do a deep dive into some outside-the-box AHL topics like which teams need a logo change or ranking jerseys or, I don't know, which AHL mascot would win a mascot cage match. Until then, relax and shoot the AHL off-season breeze with us. Hopefully you're enjoying it from a beach as well.
And if you are enjoying the 75-degree day amidst the 100-degree, high 90s, 100 degrees that we've been having here in Denver, it feels rather warm. Definitely not tropical, unless it's going to rain, which it does occasionally in June. But yeah, and you're talking about logos and ranking, team sweaters and everything. How about Abbotsford? Maybe get a logo or a sweater.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to sound the alarm just yet, but they need to have that team staffed and with logos and promos and all that stuff in not that much more time. They only have 3.5 months, and I feel like they're running a bit behind schedule right now. We don't even have a name. We have some name suggestions, but that's it.
Yeah,
it's not ideal, I feel like.
It's not. And the fact that, the Devils cut their relationship with Binghamton, moved that franchise to Utica. Musical chairs, of course, Vancouver's going to bring a franchise closer to them. They've probably been eyeing that ever since the Abbotsford Heat left. Because, like I said before on the show, a Calgary AHL affiliate right in the middle of Canucks country, right down the road from Vancouver, that's going to work real well. $12 million in the hole said it did not. So,
and if I remember right, as soon as they left, Vancouver tried to sneak in there, but couldn't reach an agreement with the arena at the 13th hour or whatever it was. That may just be me making up rumors from 5 years ago, but I think that was the case, that they tried to make it work, but at the last minute couldn't pull it off. Very Jim Benning-ish of them, but it's now that they have it in place, you would have thought that we'd have some idea of what's, do they have ticket reps yet? Do they have a team logo? It's been really quiet out there. I feel like Palm Springs is making more advancements forward than they are, which is a little bit troublesome. I'm not ready to sound the alarms yet, but it is a little weird that they're just now whittling it down from a list of, I think 10 names or stuff. So
yeah, we're not hearing, any indication from do they even have a Twitter account? I haven't really.
I don't think so.
Yeah. You gotta start pumping the tires on that. You gotta start, boosting the message. Hey, Abbotsford is getting hockey back. It's getting pro hockey back, and yeah. Anyway, that was a little bit of a rabbit trail. It did tie into what we're going to be getting into in the next topic, but boy, Sean, we were talking about this before we went live. It's been a couple weeks since our 2021 AHL Awards Bonanza, And after a little bit of a summertime breather, and Sean obviously milking that breather for all it's worth there in tropical islands, we are in full off-season mode now, obviously, and we will be putting out episodes every other week until the 2021-22 AHL season kicks off in October. And speaking of the 21-22 AHL season, we had the schedule and divisional alignment announcement. And I was kind of surprised. We talked about Abbotsford and how kind of a sudden move it was. And even the commissioner of the AHL went on record and said, it was so sudden that we didn't feel like it was going to be, I don't know. They didn't want to break up the Pacific Division. The Pacific Division has 9 teams this season, which I honestly thought this was going to be the chess piece, moving the Utica Comets franchise to Abbotsford. I thought that was going to be the domino that fell. Now I'm just mixing up my game analogies. Don't mind me. But I thought that was going to be the domino that bumped Colorado over to the Central Division, because that's been kind of like out of the periphery. Hey, Colorado, they're going to get Palm Springs, and then Abbotsford comes in and Stockton comes back, and you've got 9 teams in a crowded Pacific Division. And so it's like, okay, I guess this isn't the year. Maybe next year they're going to bump both them and Tucson over. But I mean,
Tucson feels like the worst one. Like, if there was a way to leave Tucson in that division, I mean, there probably isn't, but like, you're moving Tucson away from teams. That's going to be a hardship on them.
Well, and it's going to be like Arizona bumping over to the Central Division when Seattle comes in next year. It's not ideal, but it's geographically it makes the most sense. I mean,
yeah, and it's, as I'm sure every Arizona fan has heard, like, they're just warming up to send you to Houston.
Yeah. Yep, I have heard that. But anyway, yes, Pacific Division, obviously I'm going to talk about that being in the thick of it here. But yeah, Sean, I mean, with the schedule getting announced, with the balance coming not this season, but next season, with all teams playing 72 games, I stopped myself. I said AHL commissioner. I almost said Dave Andrews, but Scott Howson is the AHL commissioner now. And Commissioner Howson, I guess, things had to stand pretty pat, I would guess, coming into this season, just with all the COVID things and we had to deal with, that they had to deal with this season. I mean, Sean, what are your thoughts on both the schedule for 21-22 and I mean the divisional alignment that was kind of just like, all right, standing pat for the most part?
I mean, the divisional alignment, I don't really feel like there was a whole ton they could do. The biggest move they could have made was kicking Colorado to the Central or Tucson to the Central or whatever. Sure. So like the fact that they put that off for another year, that seems fine. I thought the announcement was sloppily handled in the sense that the amount of people that seemed confused afterwards based on like the graphics they put out, because nobody actually reads the releases. They just look at the pictures. And like so many people seem to think that like those were the 4 divisions in the graphic they had about who's playing what number of games. Like an obscenely high number thought that those were the divisions. I'm like, no, those are just the games they're playing. Like, and now that I look back on it, it does look almost identical to the graphic they put out of what the divisions for this year were going to be for the last COVID year.
It does.
So like some of that confusion, I guess, but it's also like, guys, you have to read what the graphic says. It clearly says games played on it. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot of it just going back to normal. Canadian teams are going to be playing U.S. teams again. Providence is going to play more than just Hartford and Bridgeport. We're going to get points percentage for another year, which that's fine. I saw a couple of people like, oh, we're going to have to do points percent. Horrible, horrible crime. Like, really, there are a lot of much better hills to die on. Points percentage is not a good one, guys. 2022-23 is going to have that standard number of games at 72 for each team, whereas this year's a little more mismatch. It's which I understand to an extent. Like, it was explained by the commissioner of like, we wanted to have everyone be on the same number of games, but like teams have already sold some tickets for like, then we have to start processing refunds or adding games. And it's just like, that's too big of a headache. We're going to all get to where we need to be next year. So, and apparently it wasn't that much teeth pulling. which I was surprised by. I would have thought if they were going to go to a unified number, they would all go up to 76. That way, everyone is gaining revenue and no one's losing it from ticket sales. But 72 is a fine number. I think they'll probably continue to do the same thing where they start in late October instead of early October, give the NHL some time to, run some guys through and see if they stick in regular season games, and then, send them down to AHL camp where they can get acclimated and stuff like that. So that I'm looking forward to. He's talking about the playoff pool expanding, which, I mean, from like a revenue standpoint, I get it. From a like competitive play standpoint, sure, whatever, like more randomness, more fun for fans. If I'm a player though, and I'm like, what are we accomplishing here? Because players don't get paid during the playoffs. So unless we're restructuring them to get like more playoff bonuses for those, what it sounds like are going to be some kind of play-in game or something like that. I mean, it's fine. I'm okay with it, but I'm not jumping up and down that like we might have more playoff teams, more randomness. Yeah, whatever. Like,
go ahead. No, when I heard that, I just thought it meant, okay, the Pacific has an overload of teams now. You have 2 divisions that have 7 teams. You have one division that has 8 teams, and you have one division that has 9 teams. So you have an imbalance, obviously, there in the Western Conference, with the Pacific having 9 and the Central having 7. So in my mind, I thought maybe 5, or maybe the top 3 teams make it. But again, we're talking about expanding the total playoffs. So maybe, my head was in the wrong place. I was thinking like the top 3 or 4 teams would make for each division in the West, and then throw in a wild card 9th. I don't know, like a play-in game, like they had this playoff with like the bottom few teams. Like I don't know, maybe they like the playoff, and that's why they pushed ahead the Pacific Division playoffs is to push. I can't help it. You push that forward to see how the play-in game goes, so as kind of a litmus test. And maybe that's what they're going to be doing next season. I don't know.
I mean,
kind of
it doesn't seem like they've figured it out yet. So that's why there's really been nothing else of like, we're thinking about expanding the playoffs, which I guess also it serves as a good kind of, litmus test for the public, where I'm sure if there were some, like, if everyone was like, no, don't, maybe they'd listen. I mean, that didn't work out so well when everyone literally said, no, don't, for the Pacific Division playoffs. But, I think they're still kind of figuring it out, but I really don't see, besides like play-in games, like maybe have, the 4 and 5 seed in each division play a play-in game, which I don't know. I feel like there should be some kind of qualifier there. Like if the team in the 4 seed is like 10 points better than the team in the 5 seed, what are we doing? Like now you're just basically saying, but what if we screwed over their entire regular season in one random game? That's dumb. That's very dumb. But we'll see what they come up with. Usually the AHL does a better job with executing these things than, say, the NHL, which botches them at like every corner it possibly can. But we'll see what comes out of that. I'm kind of hopeful that they don't screw it up. But let's talk about something that did kind of get screwed up in the MVP awards this year.
Yes, I was very quick to send this to Sean over Messenger and say, hey, what happened? TJ Tynan of the Colorado Eagles winning the league MVP. And like I told him again beforehand, Greg Cronin is a clairvoyant. That's what he is. Sean had some other choice words. We're not going to repeat them here. But, but it was funny how, yes, Greg Cronin earlier this season said TJ Tynan was the best player in the AHL. And Sean and I disagreed with that, because how do you grade the best player in the AHL? I mean, that's a debate even to this day. MVP, is it MVP of his team? MVP of the league? I mean, well, it is MVP of the league, rather. But, I mean, there's a lot of factors that people... Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
And that's one of the reasons, like, that we didn't do an MVP award for our award show, because, like, it's a dumb award in concept. Mm-hmm. Was he the forward with the best season? I'd say no, but there's at least some argument for it. He was a finalist for us, and I felt, good about that. But like the Eagles this season were not good. They were 15-19 in 34 games. They'd have missed the playoffs as the 5th seed if this were done in some normal fashion. And they only really managed to pull one out on over Ontario in the quote unquote playoffs. So how valuable was TJ Tynan then? Like, was he more responsible for Colorado's very forgettable, mediocre season compared to Logan Thompson and Henderson? Or one of the kid line in Bakersfield? Or, I don't know, like, so, I was thinking, someone in the Vol, like, it's one of those where, like, how do you determine value there is like that team wasn't good. How valuable was he to a team that wasn't that good? That's why this whole thing feels really, really silly. Like he had a good season, but like the most valuable, like what did he help Colorado to achieve? Like one rung in the standings ladder higher than they would have been. That's not really doing much.
Well, and as somebody who covered TJ Tynan, as somebody in the home market that got to see him play on a number of occasions, I mean, he helped. I mean, and granted, as I've stated time and time again during the season on the podcast, the assistant coaching change that brought in Brett Clark into the Eagles organization, and he turned around the power play from the basement, helped turn around. I'm not going to give it solely to him because TJ Tynan and Kiefer Sherwood were a dynamic duo on that power play. Their chemistry was off the charts. And I think TJ Tynan's 12 power play assists would definitely show that. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. TJ Tynan is one of the best playmakers in the league. And Sean, you and I, after we, as we said during our AHL Awards Bonanza, we are making donations to, to Locks of Love, $100, and to Nevada State, scholarship to be determined. We're working on that as we speak, as well, not right now, but you know what I mean? It's in the process. It's in the works. So we have that, and we're also making our ballots public, which I thought, our NHL editor for Full Press Hockey making his Masterson ballot public. Kudos to him, because I think transparency, we need more of it. And that's another thing we've belabored on the show and on social media, is to be transparent with how the voting goes, and especially each individual. So with that said, go ahead.
I was say, and if you've seen any of the NHL awards that have come out and they released like the voting records, they haven't released the ballots yet, which is going to happen because that's part of the PHWA's like policy now, which is good. But like, are some people going to get lit up for some of those Selke Trophy votes? How did you give Leon Draisaitl a Selke Trophy vote? Someone did it, and they should be kicked out of the voting process for that.
Are they going to be an Edmonton media member?
100%. Like,
yeah,
I can say with almost absolute certainty it's Mark Spector.
Fair enough. I will not conjecture such things, but I digress. Anyway, but yeah, we are going to be transparent on our votes, because we did vote for best forward. And yeah, that's a little more narrowed down than MVP, because we had best forward, we had best defenseman, and best goalie. MVP, you can have a goalie with MVP, but it's pretty rare in this day and age.
Which is dumb.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Especially when that goalie, like Philip Grubauer for the Avs, again, finger on the pulse, being in Denver. I mean, the Avs wouldn't have gone as far as they would have without Philip Grubauer. Like, he bailed them out a lot. So
no, but I mean, I think you could have made the case for like, I would have put not this past year, but the year before, like Connor Hellebuck should have been the MVP. That Jets team would have gone nowhere without Connor Hellebuck, literally, keeping them in 2-1 games they might win instead of getting blown out because they were terrible.
Right.
But like goaltenders are basically just like, yeah, but there's already a word for goaltenders. It's the Vezina. Dumb. Anyway,
tell us how you really feel, Sean. But
it's a stupid premise.
Yeah.
I hate the most valuable.
The awards ballot. We're going to be transparent. Sorry to get off track a little bit there. You can blame me. I'm a bit of a space cadet for sure. But I voted Cooper Marody, number 1, TJ Tynan, number 2, and Boris Kachuk, number 3 from the Syracuse Crunch. Sean, in full transparency, do you remember who you voted for?
I believe I had Kachuk 1. Marody 2, Benson 3.
No,
or not Benson 3.
you had Tynan 3.
Tynan 3.
Yes.
Yeah. That sounds like my ballot.
And overall, TJ Tynan got third in the two-man Calder Farmstead collective ballot. We voted TJ Tynan third, and Tkachuk got the nod as best forward in the league. So
nope, that was Cooper Marody.
Oh, it was Cooper Marody. No, because you voted for Tkachuk, and so my head was already there.
By averages, it ended up going to Marody.
It did.
Which, I mean, all three of them were deserving, but that was the way I thought of it. I thought Tkachuk was the best forward in the league, but
right.
I was very fine with Marody when he played a great year, and so did Tynan. I thought he was the third best forward in the league this year. Fourth would have probably been like McLeod or Benson. Fifth. We're getting into the weeds now. Anyway,
yeah, definitely.
I mean, just like you said, the coaching change in Colorado, helps cement that power play to greatness. Some coaching changes in Lehigh Valley are happening, and unlike our ballots, they were not very transparent in process.
No.
It was reported pretty quickly that Ian LaPerriere was the front runner, like immediately for the job. It's like Scott Gordon's desk wasn't even cleared off yet, and they're like, "Yeah, it's Ian LaPerriere."
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's not shocking from a hiring, process perspective. The guy's already there. He's familiar with your prospects. He worked in player development in the team before. That part I'm okay-ish with. Like he's a candidate that's deserved, the role, but it also makes me question, like, man, did you guys not even look outside of your own shop for a coach for this? Like, that's not great. Because literally no one else, it seemed like, was even rumored to be interviewing or to be getting a sniff. It was like, no, this is pretty much we decided not to renew Scott Gordon specifically so we could hire Ian LaPerriere. Like,
right.
It's not great hiring process, guys. But this is hockey. I don't expect that.
Right. And I think it's a little different than when you're hiring a head coach for an NHL team, because when you go further down the ladder, and I know we've had this conversation before, and we have slightly different philosophies in the sense that, maybe in my opinion, hiring inside the organization at a minor league level is more of a best practice. Well, to play devil's advocate, I mean, they're familiar with the system. I mean, again, when I covered Idaho, head coach Neil Graham got promoted to assistant in Texas when, Coach Montgomery got fired. And so it was, you have that ladder of ascension. You have that familiarity within the organization at the lower levels where I think you need to be a little more familiar with the cogs in the machinery, as it were. So,
I mean, I guess, but those cogs change so often. Like, I mean, LaPerriere's been there in Philly for how many regime changes? Like, that's
a few.
Yeah, like he's been there for, I want to say, 3 different Flyers head coaches and 2 GMs.
Let's find out.
Those cogs are not even the same cogs he started with. So, like, yeah, he might have a leg up on, the knowing the guys in the room or, being familiar with some of the Flyers brass, but like, that's really not that huge in terms of what you're getting from a coach. Like, I'm not saying he's a bad hire. I think he has the resume that belongs in the position he got. I'm surprised he ended up there. He wasn't on my radar just because you don't see a lot of guys go from NHL assistant to AHL head coach. Usually they go the other way, which is what happened with Cal McLean, who, beautiful transition. I'm a podcasting professional here. Cal McLean getting the nod to be the assistant coach in Calgary, taking off from the Stockton Heat head coaching job that he had for a couple of years now. He did pretty well with, I thought. But I was surprised to see that one. Like, I'm not shocked, but I didn't think that was going to be a spot that he got, at least this season. Like, he'd been doing well in Stockton, I thought he was a good coach, but it seemed to me like his resume needed a little more padding to be pulling an NHL job. Especially because Calgary brought back in, oh my God, I can't think of their coach's name off the top of my head, even though I can picture him. Sutter.
Yes. And
him and McLean, as far as I know, don't have like the history together. So that seemed like a an unlikely promotion. I thought he'd bring back, some of the old boys who were assistant coaches when he was there, if that was possible. But I mean, it's a good move. But I think the big question now is, all right, who becomes the head coach of the Stockton Heat? Because their assistant is Joe Sorella, and he, at least from my looking at it, doesn't seem like he quite has the resume that says I'm ready for an AHL head coaching job. And I mean, maybe he will be. I mean, Stockton can clearly feel differently about that than me, and I'm sure that they probably do. But I also tried to do some all right, who is someone that the GMs in Calgary would have on their short list of coaches they've worked with successfully before. And outside of Andy Murray and Mark Habschied, no one really has that old boys connection to the Flames that fits an AHL head coaching job right now. Outside of those two, and even they felt very distant. So this might be an interesting head coaching hire to see progress here in Stockton, because I haven't heard anything about who's interviewing or who's, it's been very quiet. And maybe that's just because I've been asking people on the beach here, and there's not a big AHL following, in the Caribbean. So that could be a factor. But I'm curious to see what Stockton comes up with, especially as there are still rumors swirling that they're not going back to Stockton, which they've said they're going back to Stockton, but they also said they were starting the season in Stockton last year. So
yeah. And Patrick Williams shot down on social media, AHL correspondent for Elite Prospects, Patrick Williams, just to give him credence in the title that, he's the top guy in AHL news. And so he knows that Colorado Springs. And I know that, Sean, you're like, I don't see it happening, and it isn't, at least not this season, according to Patrick Williams. Stockton Heat, Colorado Springs, COVID threw a big old wrench into that. And so, yeah, if Stockton does return, but I'm looking at, so you want to talk about affiliations, and you want to talk about, plucking and promoting from within. Here's one that I don't think should happen, and that's taking Tad O'Had, Kansas City Mavericks, ECHL first-year head coach, just got taken from the Florida Everblades, which successful franchise, but he was not a head coach there. That job belonged to, why am I forgetting? He was an Idaho Steelheads head coach. Anyway,
I can think of his name.
Yes. Why am I? Because I was going to say Laxdal, but he's Texas's head coach, and now he's an assistant. Brad Ralph. Why did I forget Brad Ralph? The Idaho faithful are going to disown me. But anyway, I digress. Tad O'Had, okay, I'm gonna put a little asterisk next to my promoting from within is a good thing, only if they deserve it. Only if they deserve it and have proven themselves. He has not. So if Stockton does that, I think that's a foolish move. That's Stockton's ECHL team for folks who don't know at home. But to take Tad O'Had, who has 1 year ECHL head coaching experience, and it was okay. I don't even know if Kansas City made the playoffs this year in the ECHL's, 13 or 14 teams that played, and 8 teams made the playoffs. So I don't think they did. I'm going to check that real quick. But Tad O'Had is not that's the antithesis of everything that I'm trying to preach here. Is that
I think Tad O'Had's a good coach too. I remember seeing some of his interviews and stuff, and seeing some of the games that he coached. He's probably going to get there someday, or at least should he continue in the path that he's going on. But he has 1 year as a head coach in professional hockey. You should not you're better off promoting Joe Sorella at that point. And
Tad O'Had, Kansas City, 6th out of 7 teams in the Western Conference in the ECHL, 31, 8-2. So a 500 record, or at least a 500 points percentage. Yeah. Yay points percentage. Sean's favorite.
No. So fine for sorting stats, but they had a losing record. That's not winning.
Yeah. I mean, they had 10 overtime losses. Well, yeah. Jesus. Overtime and shootout. 8 overtime losses, 2 shootout losses. So
how do you lose in 3-on-3 that often? Jesus.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, so Calgary got a head coaching position. Sean, I know you and I have kicked around some names in regards to the Phantoms job before Ian LePerriere was doink, anointed. So any guesses for Stockton?
I mean, the only ones, like I said, fit the like old boys club, hiring practice was Andy Murray and Mark Habschied, who were both coaches of Team Canada when Team Canada's GM is now Stockton's GM. So I feel like they might have an inside track. Both of them have, good head coaching experience. They kind of fit the profile of someone you would want there. But they feel very distant from me. Like it doesn't feel like a lock to me for either of them. Other than that, I don't think they promote from within. I don't think Joe Sorella gets it. Tad O'Had, I feel like, is a much longer shot than anyone else. Like, I would take the field over Tad O'Had, betting wise. But that's what I said. Like, this one feels very open. Like, I think they might actually go, far and outside for a hire here, which is good. I think bringing in guys from the outside that you actually had a fair interviewing process for is the way it should be done. But that coach is going to have to sign a new contract. But guys that are signing new contracts, some of them are going to Europe.
Oh, wait. Before we get to that, we are half an hour in. Should we take a break?
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Oh, yeah. We're not rusty or anything.
Yeah, we signed a contract with some sponsors, so we need to have them, have their time here so that I can continue to sip drinks on this lovely beach behind me. So let's take a pause here, hear from some sponsors. We'll come back and talk off-season signings, re-signings, guys heading to Europe, surprises, that sort of thing. So hang out. We'll be right back.
As Sean mentioned before we went on break, he was just going to forge ahead. He was in vacation mode. He was full of energy, life, and vigor, and I had to cut him off because we had to take a commercial break. But let's talk signings, re-signings, NHL two-way contracts. There's been a lot of them in the, 2.5 weeks since we had our AHL Awards Bonanza, June 4th. So, yeah, June 4th, June 5th. So let's get to it. First and foremost, just as a kind of observation, the Hershey Bears and Washington Capitals organization, I can't remember if this was two off seasons ago. I noticed that they get their guys signed quick, and maybe it's not so much of a signing them or re-signing them quick, but it's just that they announce it. Like, they announce it in threes, which has happened a couple times now here in the offseason. Like, they are announcing their guys on Hershey contracts, on Washington two-way deals. Like, Hershey's getting it done. And with the best points percentage in the AHL this year, for what that's worth, as we have talked about. But hey, they were a good team, and they're bringing back those players that will make them a good team in 21-22.
I mean, they are. They let Applesauce Maye head over to Europe. So that was, that one I'm not surprised by, though. He's one of a group that I feel like fits very neatly in a box that I would call, they're getting older. They see the writing on the wall. Like, their chance of cracking the NHL club is not looking good to them. Let's take the money in Europe. So that seemed to be where I kind of put Phil Maye there. Like, if he wasn't getting in the lineup in the Capitals this year and like getting a solid look, like, it's not going to get better next year when there's still going to be just as many guys, in front of you on the depth charts. And the Capitals seem very hesitant to mess with their bottom six because, Connor Sherry is immovable as a bottom six forward. So I'm not surprised that he went. But yeah, they brought back a lot of good signings. I thought they're going to continue to be a solid team, even though, like, I don't think any of their guys are ever going to be, future NHL stars outside of like McMichael. But I don't even think McMichael is going to be a star. I think he's a middle six forward for the Caps at absolute peak. It also wouldn't shock me to see him be a trade chip. But
yeah, go ahead. No, you first.
But Hershey bringing back, Nate Gersich just re-signed, I believe I saw. They had Hockey Flow of the Year. Actually, Janssen Falaby re-signed. Let's see who else was on the Hershey list. Urkamps and Shepard. Oh no, they were transferred. I'm looking at the wrong list.
It happens.
Yep. But like it's been It's been a good little offseason so far for Hershey. I don't think they have too many guys left to re-sign. I'm imagining, Matt Molson might always call it quits, or he might not. It's 100% a Matt Molson decision at this point, whether he wants to keep playing. But he continues to, still do good stuff for them, brings good leadership, is productive on the ice, and doesn't just, get called a good leader because he throws his fists around and that's it. Because he doesn't do that. But anyway, I think Hershey's done a really good job. A lot of the other guys are, that have signed or re-signed or gone to Europe. I mean, like I said, I think they fit into that kind of Phil Maillet bucket of they see the writing on the wall and they're going for a bigger paycheck. Derek Barash, Alex Dostie, Tanner McMaster, Jordan Schmaltz. Those kind of guys are, Dostie's still pretty young, but the rest of them are getting up there in age. And it's like, we're probably not cracking an NHL roster at this point. Let's go see Europe, get paid more money, have a good time for what's left of the career.
Yeah. And it's always fascinating to me, just the great exodus of AHL players that decide to, go across the pond. I think one of the not big surprises, but it definitely was a bit of a surprise was David Warsofsky. And I was, he's spent so long in between the AHL or the NHL and the AHL, more AHL than NHL, obviously, but, getting a chance to play under his brother and, there in Chicago. But yeah, it was kind of, I guess, like you said, it was a situation where the writing was on the wall and he's not a young pup anymore. I think he's 30 years old now. And so to have the opportunity to go and play in Europe and to get a better payday than you would in the AHL by and large, who can blame the guy?
Yeah. And maybe there's also the case too. Like I love seeing my family, but if I had to see my brother every single day, going up to work, that might make me want to get away to Europe for a year. So
that's fair.
Can't discount that at all. He is 31 years old, and I will say, having watched a fair amount of him last season, 31 is starting to catch up to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is probably one of the last, handful of seasons he has left. Time to start maxing out the money you can make. And absolutely, that's what you should do when you realize your time is short and you haven't made, Connor McDavid money from this career. Max out while you still can. Because even if he goes into coaching or skills development or something like that, those jobs do not pay the same as being a player in Europe, I don't think. So good for him for that. The other kind of group that falls in for the guys who went to Europe are guys who are probably looking to be closer to home. Martin Marincin, Kalle Kossila. Otto Leskinen was a surprise for me. He's a pretty good defenseman at the AHL level, and I thought he had a chance to crack an NHL lineup next season. Probably not in Montreal because the Habs have 7D under contract already next season, but I was surprised to see him go to Europe. But guys like Marincin and Kalle Kossila, they weren't on the writing on the wall side. I feel like Martin Marincin is, the favorite whipping boy in Toronto in terms of like that seventh defenseman. I know a lot of Leafs fans who absolutely despise seeing him in a Leafs jersey. But I felt like he could have cracked a more reasonable NHL market or, like a team like maybe Arizona or LA or something like that, where he could have gotten some, bottom six good minutes for him. But he is from Finland, I believe, and that's where he went to go play. No, he is Czech, and he went to go play in the Czech Republic. So that's not surprising. Kalle Kossila is Finnish. He went to go play for the KHL in Finland. Otto Leskinen did the exact same thing. Leskinen, I was more surprised by one. I thought he could have made an NHL team this upcoming season, or at least been like a black ace, get some rotational games in there. But other than that, nothing else too terribly shocking from the player signings front.
Let's go back a little bit and talk about the Felix Sandstrom confusion over the past couple days that happened there. So Sandstrom, he on June 8th, it said that he had signed with TPS over in Liga, and then the very next day it said that he inked a a 1-year, 2-way deal with the Philadelphia Flyers. So, yeah, I mean, valid news sources confirmed. Yeah, he's going over the TPS. He's going over to Finland in their main league. And then very next day, Felix Sandstrom and everyone was, writing articles, with Sandstrom gone, who steps up in the in the Flyers, goaltending chain. And now you don't need to answer that because Sandstrom is coming back and is probably going to be with the Phantoms next season.
Yeah, and I thought he actually did a big turn for his reputation this season. He didn't play in a lot of games, and I'm still not a huge believer in his game. Like, I want to see more. The sample size we got to see this year was not big enough for me to feel great about him, although I admit he did look better than I would have thought. I forget who was it that said it, like, who made the Carter Hart comparison, where it's like, when they were drafted, like, people thought he might be better than Carter Hart. I'm like, nobody thought that. 0 people thought that.
Carter Hart was kind of hot. Like, he was the exalted one in Philly for a while.
And it's going to be interesting to see what happens for him this year. Remember, as we always say, goaltending is voodoo. It's made up. Carter Hart, case in point this season. Mm-hmm. Like, who could have seen that year coming from Carter Hart? But Felix Sandstrom, Goalie Mask of the Year award winner Felix Sandstrom is going to be back in Lehigh Valley after, a 2-day stint over in Europe, which did make me wonder about some of these contracts that guys have signed. If that's like the case, that they're just like, well, I need a place to go next year, and I am a free agent. I want to come back to the AHL, but right now this is the only offer on my table, so I'm going to sign it. And if an AHL team comes knocking, maybe their contract has a North American out clause that they can just, do what Felix Sandstrom did and be like, just kidding about that legally binding document I just signed.
Yep. Sorry about that. Let me just pull my out clause and I'm going to stay here in America. Speaking of goaltenders, Brad Thiessen of the Cleveland Monsters, E-Bug goaltending coach, officially retired from professional hockey, gonna take a goaltending job with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Gil Shen not coming back to he was in Binghamton last year, so I guess he would have played in Utica this season. And so he's not coming back. He's going over to HC Davos in the Swiss National League. He signed a contract with them on May 27th. And Kevin Carr, local tie here in Denver, played, or at least was dressed for some Eagles game. I can't remember if he actually saw any time, but he definitely saw some time for the Grizzlies. He's heading over back to the Elite Ice Hockey League over there in the United Kingdom to play for the Nottingham Panthers once again. He played for them, I believe, in 1920, came back for 2021, and I think that's I think that's
Did not get into games with the Eagles.
No, I didn't think so. My memory served me correctly.
Was not good in the Coast this year either. Whew.
No. Parker Gahagan definitely was, but not Kevin Carr so much, unfortunately.
And he's put up good Coast numbers before too. That's unfortunate for him.
Yeah, voodoo for sure.
Yeah, it's all made up.
It's all made up.
I mean, the Brad Thiessen news, I was like, I feel like that's been like a message that they've had, like a graphic that the Monsters have had prepared for like 2 years now.
Right.
He's pretty much been the job that they're, now giving him. He's been doing that. It seems like from everyone I talked to, it's like, yeah, he's basically their emergency goalie, but he's really just the goalie coach and like the video coach. And now it's like, no, that's actually now his official job title. He technically was still on a player contract or whatever, but they just like, you're the goalie coach, unless we absolutely need someone, which in this case this season they did, because they had Hayden Stewart riding the bench at one point, who is basically a warm body.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember if we talked about that, or at least was a brief alluding to with Hayden Stewart there on the Monsters. But yes, warm body on the bench, because he's what, SPHL level.
Yes, and he's like a middling SPHL goalie. So that's bad. That's not a guy you want playing AHL games. See also a handful of who's it? Agostini? Yeah. See also Agostini this year. He was a middling SPHL goalie.
All right, we have some affiliation news, although this is pretty unsurprising something we all saw coming. But one of the ECHL's newest team, the Iowa Heartlanders, or the Homelanders, as Sean likes to invoke the boys on Amazon Prime. But no, the Heartlanders have hitched their wagon officially in the affiliation tree of the Minnesota Wild and the Iowa Wild. And of course, that leaves the Allen Americans without a dance partner for 21-22. And like I said before, possibly San Jose, the Sharks and the Barracuda. Allen's had a good working agreement with them for the past few years while they've taken advantage of the Minnesota and Iowa connection there. But that's my opinion. They're probably going to hitch their wagon officially to San Jose and San Jose for 21-22. So, but now it's official. Minnesota, Iowa, Iowa.
Yeah, and I mean, this was, and again, the press conference too, when they were talking about it, you saw the Wild brass get out there and say, exactly what we expected them to, like having all of our guys close, in close proximity is really smart move for us. Development, blah, blah, blah. Our, scouts and development people can go see all these players much more easily. They're all in one place, even though I don't think any of the developmental staff for an NHL team works with ECHLers, but it's, if nothing else, it helps build further the brand and kind of extending the market of the Minnesota Wilds in a way that I actually feel like is helpful. A lot of teams, I feel like when they move their affiliate somewhere, they put it in places where it's like, okay, but you're still inside the footprint of your NHL club. Like you're not adding new fans, but you need one that's like geographically close enough. Cause it's like when Utica was the Canucks affiliate, like some of the players or some of the fans of the Comets, they would follow the guys to the Canucks in terms of like follow their careers, their, favorite players, but like they were still by and large Rangers and Devils and Islanders and, Canadians kind of fans. Like those are the local teams for them. So
right.
I think Iowa is a perfect distance where you can kind of expand your, market in an area that's not unreasonable. It's not too far away, but it's also not so directly in the footprint that like you're not extending anything. They have a good amount of fandom battle with the Blackhawks there, but I think that's mostly due to the years the Blackhawks were really, really good. And now it seems like Minnesota is about to actually finally break through that like barrier they've had for their entire run as a franchise at this point, where they've just been kind of stuck in the like, we're good, but we're not good enough to really like make the conference finals regularly or be in the conversation for a cup. And so it's good to see that the Heartlanders are, having a reasonable AHL, ECHL affiliation, because there are quite a few teams that don't.
Right. And I think that was one of the first episodes that you and I actually collaborated on a podcast, was that you presented this fantastic, geographically correct affiliation tree. And you did bring Abbotsford back into the fold. Yeah.
I put Utica in, I shifted that franchise from Utica to Abbotsford and put Utica in the ECHL.
You put Binghamton in the ECHL, actually. I remember that.
Right. Yep.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that. So, and now Binghamton going to be a Federal Prospects Hockey League market with the Black Bears. Woof.
That's not real league.
That's rough. That's rough. But back to the Allen Americans, you look at their affiliation history, they only have 3 teams. They had Minnesota and Iowa from 18 to 2020. Excuse me, got a frog in my throat. San Jose, 15 to 18. And back when they were in the CHL, this is one that you were thinking that Idaho should disconnect, as it were, from their Dallas and Texas. Or maybe not, you thought they should, but you think they might, with Allen available. But yeah, when Allen was in the CHL, they had a dual affiliation, I guess, at the AA level with Idaho from 2012 until 2014. So, yeah. I mean,
I'm still all aboard, one Texas organization.
Right.
I think that that would be a good opportunity for a marketing perspective from them. Have all 3 logos on one shirt, have it say "Don't mess with Texas." People would buy that. Whereas I think Idaho, logistically, it makes a lot more sense. Colorado's not that far away. They don't have an ECHL team anymore. They did give back the Kelly Cup though, so that was nice of them. But they're looking for an ECHL hookup, perhaps. Idaho's right there. I feel like that's a much more clean fit.
Then Salt Lake, then the Utah Grizzlies.
That's right, Salt Lake.
Yeah.
I don't know geography. Why?
I mean, Salt Lake is closer to Loveland, Colorado than Boise, Idaho. Spoken.
How much?
Oh, I mean, it takes 5 hours to drive from Boise to Salt Lake. So, I mean, yeah, you take here. If you really want me to do the math, we'll do it.
I figured you would know Boise to Colorado Springs like off the top of your head, but apparently I'm incorrect about that.
No, I did it once when I was 13, and it was a hell of a long drive, and I don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
It was hot. It was August. I mean, yeah, it was rough through the desolate wasteland of Wyoming. I mean, yeah, there's
Wyoming's in between the two. Yeah, I don't know geography at all.
You take I-25 straight up from Colorado Springs all the way to Laramie, we'll say, and then you just shoot right across Wyoming, and then you dip down into Utah. You come up through, I want to say Ogden, and then you hit. Yeah, you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, do you?
That sounds incredibly there is no way that's the most efficient path. Was this like before Google Maps happened?
It is. I took it to move from Boise to Denver a couple years ago. I took this driving route. It takes 14 hours, and that's to Denver. So it took 15 or 16 to go from Colorado Springs to Boise, but I digress. So Boise to Salt Lake, 4 hours and 54 minutes. Then you put Loveland, Colorado in there to Salt Lake. It's 7 hours and 16 minutes.
All right. Well, I clearly have no idea what I'm talking about. Geography. Yeah, you beat me with my mortal weakness, geography.
I'm sorry. Geography, my only weakness. That and maybe silver bullets.
Palm Springs.
Palm Springs? Boise to Palm Springs? Well, they're not going to be around for another year, but why the hell not?
Boise to Palm Springs is 13 hours. Okay, that's not much better.
But okay, let's put it this way. If airlines, you can get anywhere you need to. And Idaho hitching their wagon to Abbotsford or hitching their wagon to, because I can't remember who Utica's. Oh, it's Kalamazoo. That's right. That's going to be interesting for next season. The Kalamazoo Wings and the Abbotsford organization.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
No. I think, yeah.
Why is Kalamazoo not the Red Wings organization? Well, Toledo's right there. Still, Michigan.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no answers. Sean, it's not geographically situated. I'm sorry. I know you did a whole thing, like I said, and it makes sense.
I don't remember where I put them in the end. I really don't. It was a while ago. It was over a year ago. Anyway.
It was 2 years ago, I think, or at least a year and a half. Anyway, like you said.
Time is a flat circle.
Yes, it is. Well, last and definitely not least, unfortunately, news broke today that Tom Curvers, former Hobie Baker Award winner at Minnesota Duluth in 1983 to 84, went on to play 659 games in the NHL with Montreal, Buffalo, New Jersey, Toronto, Vancouver, the New York Islanders, and Anaheim. That's 17. That's 7 teams for those not viewing the YouTube edition of the program. 7-game stint in the AHL with the Capital District Islanders in 92-93. Front office wise, he spent 10 seasons with Tampa Bay, 11 years with the Phoenix Coyotes, assistant GM of the Minnesota Wild since 2018. Unfortunately, he has passed away at the age of 58 from lung cancer after a battle with lung cancer. And, as someone who lost his father when he was 59, to lose your dad, I'd say that's an early age. It's not 40 or 45, but it feels early, Sean. It feels early then, especially when you die from cancer. Like it just, cancer is a bastard, and it always takes people too soon, which I think so. Yeah.
And it's a crappy way to die too. Cause it's not, I don't think there are good ways to die. But
no,
it's a prolonged fight. It's never just over and done with. And, it's painful for everyone involved. So our condolences go out to the family. He had a wife and 4 kids. And I'm sure, an extended family beyond that who is feeling a lot of loss, especially right after Father's Day weekend. So that definitely, adds salt to the wound. So our condolences go out to them. I can't imagine there's anything we can really do beyond that. I wish that weren't the case, but this is unfortunately the best I feel like we can do.
Yeah.
So sad note to end the show on, but that is the end of our show today. If you are enjoying our show, please make sure you subscribe so you can get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, please feel free to rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening to it from, or if you're watching on YouTube, like the video, comment what you thought of the episode, click the little subscription button, click the little bell, press all of the buttons and whistles. Who knows what'll happen? Maybe you'll win a prize. But doing so definitely helps others find the show. Your reviews and comments help us improve the show. If you'd like to follow us on social media, we are at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at the Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. All of that and more can be found in our link tree, which is linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. That's linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. You can find our social channels all the way at the bottom there, or just follow where I said. If you're enjoying the show, I'm pretty sure you're going to like us on social media. We post some pretty good memes, have a good time, make some jokes. We are also the reigning AHL Twitter Connect 4 champions. So there is that. CC, where can people find you?
Our social media account just completely pwned the Utica comments the other day. Can confirm. Not one game, but two. The Calder Farmstead AHL podcast is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can follow this podcast, a lot of other great hockey pods, and a lot of other great sports and sports entertainment podcasts. Don't forget about fullpresswrestling.com. But you can go over there to Full Press Coverage, the umbrella that encompasses it all, fullpresscoverage.com, and you click on that little down menu, podcasts. Click all the shows. So thank you for choosing us in the litany of programming that fullpresscoverage.com provides for sports and sports entertainment fans. As for me, I'm CC Hockley. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL and at my personal Twitter account at CCHawk. That's SEESEEHAWK. And you can check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network at www.fullpresshockey.com. And I think I'm due for another article here pretty soon. So stay tuned. Sean.
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SEANOBRIEN 81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien_81, where you can find pictures of me wearing ridiculous hockey socks to actually play in. If you're curious about my stats work, that's all found on Tableau at bit.ly/data-dump-and-chase. There you can find all kinds of advanced statistics on the AHL, some of the ECHL and previous seasons that may or may not get updated with last year's data in the future. I do have a idea for a deep dive project on development and coaching that might go up there sometime, over the summer. I don't do a lot of work over the summers because the sand gets in the keyboard. It's very messy.
Brutal.
But you can find all of my stats work there. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's DYSFUNCTION. So he can make music for you too. CC, take us home.
That'll do it for episode number 42 of the Calder Farmstead. For Sean O'Brien, I'm CC Hockley. Thanks for tuning in. And once again, we'll be going bi-weekly. And whenever there's news, we'll throw in an episode maybe every week. We'll see. If there's big breaking news, we'll be there for you. So on behalf of Sean, I'm CC. We thank you guys for tuning in once again. And as always, keep your stick on the ice.